All right, I started the recording, so you can go ahead and start whenever.
All right, so I'll go ahead and share my desktop. Hold on a second here. And then I'm going to go here, bring up the slides, and we're going to talk about these for a bit. Appreciate the opportunity to be with you. Oh, I'm sorry. Do you want me to start, or you got anything else as far as intros go, TJ?
Yeah, go ahead. I would say go ahead. Maybe say a little bit about yourself. Obviously, that information's been included in the post, but go ahead and say a bit about yourself, and then you can jump right in.
All right, I'd be happy to do so. My name's John McCumber. I am ISC Squared's first ever Director for Security Advocacy. And of course, you're going to wonder what that means. And if you find out during this call, please text me or email me what it means, and I'll be happy to include your comments. We're still sorting out what that is. Hey, I appreciate everybody being with us today. What we want to talk about of course, is something that's been in the media quite a lot, and that's called the cybersecurity skills gap. What does that mean? Well, you've seen a lot of the media hype out there that there's going to be 1.8 million jobs with some element of cybersecurity to them that are going to be going unfilled over the next several years. And one of the challenges we always have is understanding what does that mean to us as individuals. How many times have you sat through a corporate presentation with the CEO or some vice president or somebody getting up there and talking for 20 or 30 minutes about new initiatives or maybe a reduction in force? Everybody in that audience doesn't care what that person is saying. They're all sitting there saying, what does this have to do with me? What does it have to do with my job? What does it have to do with what I'm going to do next week? Am I going to have a job next week? What does it mean about my pay and income? What is it going to mean about my future? And that's exactly what we tried to address at ISC Squared when we saw all this information on the skills gap. One of the things that we did then was go out and did a survey. And we wanted to understand what is going on in this market, what's going on with this, primarily those job seekers. Again, people that ask, what does it mean to me? What we're going to do over the next, 12 or 13 minutes, just talk about what we did in this study, some of the key findings. I'll give you my take on what the statistics mean, and then give you some guidance on how to use this data and apply it. And then I'm going to address some questions that have been sent my way, and then open it up for you. Would be looking forward to making you part of this conversation. We didn't do a real, broad-based survey, but we did talk to about 250 cybersecurity pros, and those are people that had cybersecurity as their primary responsibility. This was taking place in North America in December of 2017. It wasn't done just with our membership. This was an independent blind survey. It gives you a little bit of background. It's always important to know where the data comes from. So we wanted to let you know where this information you're going to see comes from. Well, this is no surprise, right? 70% are open to a new job. I'm actually kind of surprised that it's not near 100%. I mean, I think we're all kind of looking, or be open to what our careers would be worth in the foreseeable future and what opportunities exist for us in cybersecurity. This is about the least surprising thing that came out of the report. But what's really interesting is one of the things that you see is a couple of the constant themes that come out of this are inevitably one, why is there this gap? And then, again, how does it apply to me? What, is it meeting what I'm seeing anecdotally? And what I mean by that is what are my friends going through, my colleagues, others I know in the field, maybe even family members. So when people apply for jobs or look for opportunities, it's always an assumption because there's this skills gap that we can just take our skills down the street 2 blocks, get a 20% uplift in salary, be able to bring our dog to the office and have free yoga classes as we do at ISC Squared. But that's not necessarily the case. What people actually in this business look for are opportunities where they're going to be part of a solution. And so you see here, this is exactly what's reflected in these statistics. It's nothing, earth-shattering here, but employers and of course employees need to understand that what they're really looking for is not primarily, a change in salary, an upgrade in salary. Now, that doesn't say that we don't look for that or that is not important. It just means that every study has shown that once you achieve a certain level of prosperity in your career, that just getting a few more bucks here or there isn't the driving force. People want to be taken seriously. They want to be able to be part of the mission in cybersecurity, and they have to understand that they're working for a company that supports them ethically. Of course, half want the best salary. Now, notice that term best. It's not average. It's not the mean. It's the best they feel they can get. And obviously, salary is really heavily dependent. We're in the process at ISC Squared of doing salary surveys, so we can help you understand what it is like. One of the first questions I got, in fact, when we proposed this session was, John, what happens when these people are looking for these unicorns, these people that are highly rounded and experienced in cybersecurity, and then the salary comes in at some really disappointing number. That's going to happen, but we can't act like we don't have a role in this. We're going to talk about that later on. But you'll see that about 40% are satisfied with their current salary. Again, once you reach a level of prosperity or a level of satisfaction with what you're trading your labor, time, and effort for in exchange for income has reached a certain point of stability, then the other issues become more important. I think nearly 20 years ago, a Harvard Business Review study came out and said that salary is not the driving force. If you get a raise at work or promotion, it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to work harder. Hopefully that's a recognition that you have already been working at that level. So salary, depending on your geographic location, the nature of your work, the amount of travel, those are all dependent activities. So these are just overarching numbers to consider. I kind of think the statistic on the left here is almost kind of funny. Look at, we live in the era of breach, and that means people need our skills. And that doesn't mean people are good at what we do can completely preclude the opportunity for things like breaches, malicious attacks, and the like. Obviously, people would like to think that organizations will responsibly disclose these facts, and that working for organizations that do is an important part of what they see as an ethical response to their work. And I think that's an important, ISC Squared, again, we were one of the few certification bodies that actually require our members to sign on to a code of ethics. And that's a critically important part of what we do. And that's why we don't reward criminal. You don't get into this business by being a criminal and then getting a consulting contract, as used to be kind of an acknowledged element to this business. We're an organization with professional men and women that do an extremely difficult job and have to do it honorably and ethically. Obviously, there's elements of doing security and risk mitigation. There are three levers that agencies and organizations get to pull on. And those levers are technology, policy, as well as human factors, or what I call the people factor. So people in organizations that spend their investment in security technology are just yanking one of those levers. And they have to realize, again, from my experience working at Symantec and RSA, I can tell you, working with vendors, that just buying a product to solve a problem is table stakes. That's beginning to address some risk mitigation activities. The key problems come when you have to be able to establish policies for these tools to enforce and the technology to be able to accommodate. And then, of course, train the men and women who have to be able to use this technology in an effective way to provide the appropriate risk mitigation. So that number, I kind of discount that a bit. I'm saying, tech is important, but the people that really are skilled in this, and we're finding our members, have to be able to address all those areas. And give people, obviously, where a company needs to improve. I think this is kind of I think it's an odd question, and I think it's an odd answer. If you are not going to go to work to help improve risk mitigation strategy for an organization, I don't know what you go do, because that's what we do in what we call cybersecurity, is helping organizations deal with their response to risk. And that's an important and critical aspect to what we do. One of the important things is, even if, if you're a pen tester, if you're a vulnerability researcher, there's a lot of roles you can play in this business. You can work in governance, identity and access management, policy development. All these areas are critical elements, and understanding the overall impact that your role has in this is important, which is why when people take our more advanced exams for certifications such as a Certified Information Systems Security Professional, we expect them to be able to address all 8 domains of the career field so they have that understanding. So obviously, when people talk about improve, that's a very subjective measurement. We prefer to talk about their maturity, and there's actually ways that we work to demonstrate security, or organizational security management and maturity, and those are reflected in policies such as the NIST risk management framework and others that we use. Here's some more statistics we found. Obviously, organizations that invest in their people are going to be attractive to people that are looking for work. They're looking for training, skills acquisition, and support as they either address advanced education, more certifications, or more opportunities to learn and apply their skills. One of the challenges that we have repeatedly, and we get, at ISC Squared, we like to say we're the certifications you love to hate, because some people do get in there and they say, hey, they use it as a checkbox, or this is just a filter for the HR department to make hiring decisions. And that's certainly not the way that we've structured our certifications, nor do we advocate for that. It's not meant to keep people out of this career field. It's meant to knock down barriers to help more men and women in this career field. And in order to do that, organizations need to focus on having clear job descriptions. The latest security technology, again, I've already kind of addressed that. As you can see, it's a 50% kind of a split issue. Again, if technology solves the problem along with the policy and the people, then that's fine. But again, the important thing is doing the right amount of technology, policy, and human factors that makes us effective in what we do. So where does the disconnect between what are people ask for? As you see, some of the answers are ambivalent, some of the questions are ambivalent. Let's just say where we are right now is that the professional's job mobility is high. There's a lot of turnover in the field and technology. That's to be expected right now. There's low unemployment for everybody, and that's good for a lot of us. And recruiters, of course, are part of this, because as people change and evolve and grow in the field, their business grows as well. So they're seeking to maintain churn in the market. What are job seekers, looking for from their potential employers? And that is, ethical treatment, investment in that security, and respect for what they do. That's really what people are looking for. Certainly salary plays a critical role in that, but the top 3, they're looking for that respect and understanding the importance that security and the role that these people do in the organization. It's not about money, it's about the program. Here's one thing that I always like to talk about that I think is critical for those of us in security. We're not enforcers as a rule. We're not here to sit there and hammer people for doing users of systems for making ill-advised mistakes or that. We're simply there as advisors. It's for us to set out what we believe are the critical risk mitigation plans for the organization, help enforce them, and then gather data and apply that and supply that to the decision makers. That's not being a scapegoat, that's being an advisor. And that's truly critical for what we all do in cybersecurity. This is what I wanted to cover for the job seeker survey. And I would be interested in your feedback, and I'm here to have you ask me anything.
John, that was awesome. Thank you so much for the presentation. That's some really great information. I'll first say, anyone on the call have any questions, opening it up to them, and then if not, we can kind of dive into some of the prepped questions that were posted directly to that post made on NPC. So does anyone have any questions on the phone? Cool. All right, let's jump over to the questions from the post. So, what I'll do first is maybe John, I'll have you pull it up so you can see it as well. So I'm not just reading them all off. Um, but we've got.
Okay,
Does that work? Okay.
sure.
Cool. So we've got one here from Mike talking about. He said there's a skills gap. He said, oh, is there a skills gap, or are employers trying to find that unicorn that does all of the following? And he goes into talking.
Laundry list?
Yeah, exactly. And then
Yeah.
a little question there at the end. So do you want to talk to that a little bit?
Be happy to. That's a great question, and that is a challenge that we have in the industry. There's a disconnect that we see between, actually the people that the hiring manager, human resources, and recruiting. Now, what we want to do is a lot of this is anecdotal, but I do want to address it, and I'm working internally with ISC Squared to see about what data gathering we need to do to address that. This gentleman at the end, Mike, talks about the fact that he's been asked to wear most of these hats, and it says it leads to burnout. We also hear about that quite a bit too. The important part that we as professionals need to do in the field, and we work with our membership at ISC Squared to help them establish what are the boundaries of the position, what are the skills requirements, and how are those implemented on behalf of the organization. This is a critical element what we do because we've evolved. When I got into this business 30 years ago, it was, security was this group of crazies off on the side, working on their little pet projects into designing secure operating systems or communication channels. What we see today has evolved over the decades is everyone in the organization who touches critical assets, sensitive data, trade secrets, healthcare information. If you touch it, you got a security job somewhere in your job description. And so it's not just something to be palmed off on somebody who's a member of ISC Squared, somebody who with a Security Plus certification or something like that. It's not what the job is. So one of the things that we see evolving quickly is that the entire space that we're in requires an understanding and what we call a cybersecurity culture. So understanding your specific role in that, this is what this Mike talks about here: systems management, network management, secure application development. All those are elements of what we do. No one person is going to do them all excellently, or at that level. So organizations have to be very concerned about how that. If you're a app developer, right, you have to understand secure app development. When we have a certification for that, and so it may not be a generic security person. It may be somebody who doesn't even have a cybersecurity in their job title, but an important and critical component needs to be cybersecurity. I'm sorry, that's where I want to just kind of end it there so I don't just knock off any other opportunities to answer questions.
No, perfect. That was really good. That was very well thought out, and I appreciate it from your perspective as well. Thanks. So let's go on to the next question then.
Sure.
There's a bit of some context there. So actually, do you mind reading out loud that first sentence from PC 509?
Yeah.
The question.
Yeah, and I've heard this come up, and again, unfortunately, mostly anecdotally. I have a colleague going through this now, but PC 509 says, hey, there are arguments that the skills are there, but the salary is not. Many people want that highly skilled individual, but do want to pay them what they are worth. Security is a booming field with a lot of people trying to get in and become qualified individuals. Great question, great observation. What we're doing at ISC Squared is to help people get basic qualifications as well as advanced certifications so that they can enter this field. We got special programs for veterans, underserved communities, retraining workers, and others. This is a booming field. The challenge is that the rest of the world has to catch up. And we have a role to play. What we help educate our men and women to do is they have a role to push back on organizations. We certainly do it. One of the things that, and in fact, I got taken to the woodshed on Twitter just this weekend by a colleague in the business who said, you guys, and I always hate being called you guys, at ISC Squared got to address the issue of recruiters abusing your certifications. And I asked this individual what they were talking about. Well, they talk about, they use it as checkbox security. And then I was able to show them, going back a decade, articles, things that we've written, initiatives we've undertaken to address just this problem. When we set up these certification, it wasn't meant to create roadblocks and it wasn't meant to create filters. And there's nothing worse than just checkbox hiring. You don't hire for that. So we wanted to make sure these organizations, recruiters and others are addressing and understanding what job descriptions look like and how they can address this skills gap in their organization. The biggest thing they can do, stop looking for unicorns. They don't exist, or if they do, they're rare. You want to get men and women who are trained and have these skills and abilities to address the specific job you're hiring them to do. I think once we do that and start focusing on that, and we're working, and we invite you to join us to push back when you see this, even if you're not, looking for that job or whatever, let us know, let us have an opportunity to talk to those people and say, hey, we need to find a better way, because you don't need necessarily the PhD, the MBA, the traditional college level. IT security is changing, rapidly changing, the traditional educational model. And it's important to keep up with that. And that's why things like you're going to see certifications, micro-educational opportunities, online learning, and skills acquisition to become far more important going forward.
That's good. Okay, cool. So the training too then is specific as well.
Absolutely.
So one last thing I want to have you talk about a little bit is Per posted a question, excuse me, more of a comment without a specific question embedded into it, but he mentioned for himself that cybersecurity and skills gap conversations are super important to take seriously to preserve things like the integrity of democratic elections and to fight crime. Did you want to comment on that at all in terms of kind of what you thought from your perspective about this job specifically and whether or not it affected those things? I just see.
Oh, yeah, that's a great questions. These are very topical. But as much as things change, a lot of things stay the same. When you say fight crime, there's a couple of different roles. That's a broad topic. So when you say fight crime, is cybersecurity a law enforcement or an enforcement job? I would argue it's not. There are people that do enforcement, and in fact, we partner with law enforcement in North America as well as in EMEA and APAC when they have questions about whom to hire and what skills they need. But at the end of the day, most cybersecurity professionals are in the business of risk management and risk mitigation. So their job is, as I said in an earlier comment, as an advisor. So there's great need for people to provide understandings of what vulnerabilities exist. And we're talking here about these election issues. What are the vulnerabilities of these voting systems? How can they be mitigated? What is the best risk mitigation strategy, and what does that cost? If you can begin to address those issues and help governments answer those questions, wow, that's critical. That's really important, because it's not just looking for vulnerabilities. You see that everywhere. They did it at DEF CON this year. I was out in Las Vegas for the annual, what they call summer camp for those of us in this business. And one of the things they did is they had a hacking village for systems used for voting. The point where they, but here are the questions that weren't answered that came out of that. Where are these being used? What is the specific vulnerabilities, and how do they apply to specific voting systems? Which governments are affected? How much is this impact going to be, and what would it cost to mitigate the risk? Those questions aren't being answered. So if PAIR's looking for an opportunity to talk about new businesses and everything around these issues, there's a great place for you to start.
That's a really good information. I see. So that's just kind of an emerging thing where people are just starting to have those conversations, but they're not as prolific necessarily as we'd hope.
Well, we got it. My favorite, U.S.-based poet was E.E. Cummings. I grew up in Illinois, and everybody read Cummings. But, one of the things that he said is that to him, the more beautiful answer that learns to ask the more beautiful question. And what we want to do in this regard is to make sure we're asking the right questions. Too many times people use words like threat, risk, and vulnerability interchangeably, and they're not. In fact, these terms often have mathematical relationships. One of the things I did when I started ISC Squared just about a year ago now, just under a year, I started developing lexicons, little desktop references. You can find them on our website if you want, or if you want their hard copies available. We've done one for cybersecurity and one for industrial control systems, and I'm currently drafting the one for Internet of Things. And that allows you to understand what these terms mean and use them correctly. The problem we have in this is a lot of people use terms that really have no meaning without a lot of context. And by that, I mean terms like hacking or hacker. Those don't mean anything. What is a hacker? A good guy? Is it a bad guy? Is it a verb? It's a noun. What do you mean by that? Is it a vulnerability researcher? You know, what's the role here? By being able to drill down and use these terms correctly, we can have much better conversations and do a much better job addressing the needs of industries and government.
I got you. Well, cool. That's some really good insight. Thank you for commenting on that, even though there wasn't a specific question kind of embedded in there.
No, this is great. I mean, you know, like I say, these are what these asking, what PER's asking here. These are on is a really important set of topics to discuss. The first thing we need to do is make sure we're using our words correctly, and then after that, we need to address the bigger issues of risk management. This isn't about just looking, you know, what we call stunt hacking, looking for a vulnerability here or there. If you're responsible for nation or a state voting system, for a nation, for a state government, for something, you've got to deal with all the vulnerabilities, and you have to understand what the appropriate risk mitigation strategies are. That's where the money's going to be, and that's where the critical thinking is being done right now.
Okay, cool. That's good. Sweet. Well, thanks, John, for your time. I really appreciate it. Anyone else on the phone want to ask a quick question in the last couple of minutes before the 9:30 hour hits? Perfect. Okay, well, as I said before, this has all been recorded, so we're going to post this up on NPC as a follow-up to our Ask Me Anything session. John, thank you so much again for joining us this morning and giving us a rundown on that topic. I really appreciate it. It was very comprehensive, and we look forward to creating some more discussion around that on NPC in the future. So thank you.
It's my pleasure, TJ. Appreciate you and those join the call. I'll look forward to following up. I'm not hard to find, and I know you're posting my contact information. So looking forward to hearing from everybody.
Great. Thanks so much, John. Have a good day, everyone on the call.